Today I'm sharing with you two garments, but I'm only gonna give you a sneak peek of one, and it's all about exposed facings. Look how awesome. So if you're intrigued to see the other one, keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina. This is Lifting Pins and Needles, a channel all about sewing, limitless sewing. Welcome back if you're regularly stopping by, and if you're new to the channel, I work really hard to provide content that is practical, lots of sewing footage for you to see how things are done so that you can apply these to your own sewing at home. So if you like that idea, go ahead and subscribe, tap on that bell so you don't miss out when there's a new video up on the channel. The pattern I have to share with you today is one I have already made 2 years ago. It has been a firm favorite and one that I have been wearing a lot. And it is a Sonata dress by Love Notions. I was a pattern tester. This was the first pattern test I did for Love Notions back in 2018. And when I saw the line art, everything, I was hooked. So the relationship with the brand has grown. I have made many of their patterns and love them all. Back then I made two dresses, both in rayon. One is black and was like the muslin. Put a picture here, and this was the final one, like the nice one, the one that I like the most. The black one I find a tad boring just because it's a plain black. Maybe you can see a bit more here. But the bodice here is not empire. It doesn't come right under the bust, but it does come above the natural waist. And there are dots on the side and dots below the bust, with cup options A through D in separate files, so you're sure to get a really good fit. And then comes an A-line skirt at the back. There's a little elastic here that unites the bodice to the skirt, making it super comfortable. And you know, both bodice pieces are cut on the fold, so you don't need zippers or any type of closures. You can get in and out super fast. Now I've usually tend to make sleeveless versions, as you can see, sleeveless. But the pattern also has a short sleeve, a flutter sleeve, and a long bishop sleeve. Now this is the feature that makes me love this pattern even more, and it's the neckline. I love this. And this is finished with a facing inside that's understitched, so the facing stays neatly inside and makes the neckline super neat. But there's another option. You can finish the facing exposed. So I didn't have the opportunity to do that yet, but it has been on my mind for ages. You can use even cotton for this dress, you know, linen, chambray, lightweight denim, anything you want really. I've used rayon for both of the dresses that I've made. So if you want to see more about the construction of this dress, how to do the neckline, how to put it all together, I did film more that in the original video about this dress. So I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to discuss the neckline. I mentioned that doing an exposed facing was one of the options for this dress, and it's been on my mind for ages. And I'd even pictured the fabrics that I would pair. I've made two garments. One is a top and the other one is a dress. Now this pattern does not come with an option of a top. You know, the bodice finishes here, right? But there is a way that you can lengthen this and turn it into a top. And I've done that, and in Up Close and So Personal, I'm going to show you how I transformed that bodice into a loose flowy top that is going to turn out like a woven tee with an amazing exposed facing. So I'm going to show you the step-by-step on how I did my exposed facings, because both of these garments I made using that contrast, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. So let's hop into all the sewing that I want to share with you today.
Don't you think this is starting to wear me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak.
This is the bodice of the Sonata dress, and this is not an empire line. It's a bit lower than that. It is higher than the natural waist, so sort of between empire and the natural waist. It is higher than the waist, and I want to use the darts I know fit me. I want that beautiful neckline, the arm side fits beautifully, everything here at the top I want to recreate, but I want to make it into a top instead. So all I did was put the bodice on paper, copied that exactly, the darts. Now this is a dart that's supposed to go underneath the bust. I'm not going to use that, so I'm just going to ignore that. I've copied the outline of the bottom there, and I've done the same with the back. So I'm just going to take this off. So I've just copied all the same markings that a pattern has. These two go on the fold, the grain lines, copied all that. Now you can see the outline there of the bottom of the bodice. I just added 8 3/8 from that same curve. I sort of kept the same curve there, and I added a centimeter extra from underneath the arm side and all around the side. And here, around this length, I just made sure that I have enough for my hips. So I got my hip measurement, added 2 inches to that, divided by 4, and then made sure that I had the right amount of width here that is going to go over my high hip. So if I measure from the top down to here, this is the length of the top, 65 centimeters. So it's not at my full hip, it's sort of at my high hip. So I'm sure this is going to fit my hip. I don't want it to be a really loose and baggy top. I know the bodice on the top fits really well. I just gave it 3/8 extra of ease there at the sides, and I'll finalize the fitting when I put it on myself. Otherwise, I know the bust dart there is at the correct place because I've already made the dress. I wanted to keep the curve there, so there is a curve on the hem. I like tops with that. I think it looks pretty. And this looks really wrong, but it's right. When you close the dart, the seam makes total sense. If I close that dart and put these two together, one on top of each other, the seams are going to match on the sides. They have the same length. And that's an important thing to check when you're lengthening things, to make sure you're going to get something that makes sense. At the bottom on the side, there's a 3/8 seam allowance, so I did true that there so that it matches there on the side, and I'll show you that a little bit later. See that there, where it's folded? I folded it like it was sewn, and then I added that little bit that is needed for the hem to make sense inside and not come up shorter in there. Okay, so let's pretend the side seam has been sewn, and I'm going to be pressing the seams open like I usually like to do. See, the seam follows the shape of that curve there, and that's why that little extra needs to be there. Otherwise, if I didn't do this and just cut this straight, when you fold this, it would have turned out like that, shorter, and then it doesn't look good on the inside. And when you're trying to sew the hem, it starts pulling up and it just doesn't sit right. So it's always important to true curved seams so that they have the same length when they're actually sewn, as you can see there. I've got the facing, so I'm going to use all that in the same way as I would the dress, only I'm making a top instead. I want to do the exposed facings, the ones that go to the outside that are visible, and I found some linen sleeves that I pulled off from something else, something I refashioned, very good quality linen. And what I've done is I've just fused interfacing on all that piece there, because that's the area I'm going to get the facings from. So when I fold that in half, it looks like that, and the facings just fit like right to the tip and right to the tip there. So the interfacing is already there. I can just cut it really nice and precise, and it'll be all done and ready without getting deformed. Also, sometimes when you fuse interfacing onto some fabrics, it shrinks. So you could end up with a smaller facing if you don't do it this way. So I'd rather prevent that and do it this way. It's much more accurate. These are the facing pieces. The shoulder seams have been sewn. Remember, I cut it already interfaced. And now, because I want this to be exposed on the outside and I want the fold there to be really neat, I've done a guide stitch at 1/4 inch. I used my presser foot, so it's really neat. And I'm going to work on folding this and snipping where necessary and pressing it and having it neat before attaching it onto the neckline, because it will be much easier to manipulate before rather than when it's already on the neckline. I ended up basting it. I don't really need to snip anything because linen is like that. It does conform to shapes better than other fabrics, and also because I've folded in such a small amount. I've been careful to get this point there really sharp, really neat. And so now this is ready to be put onto the neckline. I've got the top here. I've sewn the shoulder seams, serged them. I've stay stitched the neckline, as you can see. And so the facing goes right side of the facing to the wrong side of the neckline. And when this is sewn, it'll get flipped, and then this will be the visible side on the right side. So I'm going to align everything and put it all together. The edge of the facing has been basted on. I did it quite wide because I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch foot to do this really nice. I know the seam allowance is supposed to be 3/8, but I don't really think it makes a difference in the way it's going to look. I just prefer that it's easier to sew it with a 1/4 inch with that foot, and then it's just easier, you know. So right to wrong there. I'll just start at the back somewhere. So in this place, I like to finish and then start over, because then you have a really nice intersection there that is more stable than if you just pivoted. And it just looks better when you turn it right sides out, in my opinion. Snip the seam allowance inside there, and then when you flip it, it's going to come off over to the right side of the garment. So this fabric here is light colored, so understitching needs to happen there so that the facing will stay put and this won't be visible. So this is where that notched area starts, and I'm going to try and get as close as I can to there and then go around. So I have the seam allowance underneath here, fold it that way to the left, and I'm using this presser foot that allows me to stitch on the edge, and I move the needle to the left. So that's how that looks inside. I changed the color of the thread to a lighter one to match that one there. I didn't want black stitching there. This area here is fiddly to understitch, but I will do it as well because I really want this V to be really sharp and I don't want any of this light color popping up. So in this area, I snipped into that V there several times so that it'll be easier to do this. I'm going to try to make all this fabric stay here without creating puckers. I move it out of the way with my hands, and I prefer to hand crank this so I make sure I don't create a pucker. I've pressed everything nicely. The understitching is keeping that light colored fabric inside without a problem, and it's all looking super neat. Now this needs to be top stitched on. I have that basting from what I did when I folded it under, so I'm going to remove that. So I'm just going to baste this again, basically to hold it down, and then I'm going to top stitch, and I'll be using the edge foot and sewing right on the edge. I want it to look really nice and precise because it's right in your face when someone looks at you. That's why I'm taking all these precautions. You saw that I modified the bodice to lengthen it and turn it into a top. Now the amount of ease that you want around the hips is up to you. I think I used the minimal amount I would be comfortable with. So that's why you saw me mention, measure your whole hip, add 2 inches, divide that by 4, and then just make sure that your pattern has that width at the bottom, that it's going to fit nicely around your hips and be flowy like a top would. So here is the one that I made. I really love it. I had 1 meter of fabric. This is a lightweight crepe. It is semi-sheer, but if I wear my skin color undergarments, you can't tell, and I can totally wear this just like that, I love how the linen facings look. I think it gives it something extra, and I think linen is always beautiful. And for a facing like this, I think it's perfect for the structure that this neckline needs to lay nicely. You know, you don't want it flopping around and looking strange. And, you know, to construct these types of facings, you got to be super exact in the way that you cut them, the way that you sew them, because they do really need to match the neckline. That's why I took so many precautions, like the block fusing for this. I didn't want this to distort or go out of shape. And, you know, the stay stitching of the neckline, why I tackled this first before anything else on the top, and why I did all that hand basting. And, you know, I just really want it to look good, and I think I achieved it. It's nice and sharp, the point there, and it's all very, very pretty. Now, I was always planning to make a tank because that's what I mainly wear, so it would have looked like this. But then I had this little chunk of fabric at the bottom, and I thought, oh, you know, why not? Let's do the short sleeves. So I hadn't printed that pattern piece out from 2 years ago because I had just made sleeveless versions. Printed it out and just set it in. Beautiful, no drama setting the sleeve in. Goes in really well, matching the notches, and it fits my shoulders perfect. And this length is nice length, short length, you know. I've hemmed it by serging, folding up and sewing, you know, nothing special with any of the hems here, no hand sewing. And at the back, I do have tiny back waist darts there. And I did this with the method that you just put it on and pinch the darts out by looking at yourself in the mirror and then going ahead and drawing them nicely onto the fabric. I have a video showing 2 ways that you can add darts to your garments, and I'll link it so you can go and watch that if you want to see. This is how the top looks inside. You can see the stitching there of the facing is really neat. I've sewn everything with black and the black serger, you know. And here at the back are the little darts. The depth of these darts is 1/2 inch, so I took out 1 inch there and another inch there out of ease of the waist. It's still really nice and flowy and loose, but it gives that tad bit of shaping at the back that I like. I've pressed the seams separately on the side like I like, and I was really confident in doing this hack because I know this fits me perfect. I know the dart here on the side is a perfect fit. The arm side, I knew it was going to fit. The question was whether the ease I put around here was going to be enough, but in theory, measuring, it should have been enough, and it is. So I'm going to show you how it looks. Here you can see the fit. This is the length that I like, just mid-hip sort of thing, and you can see the ease I added on there, nice and flowy. I think I could use a little bit less ease maybe the next time I make this, but that's okay. At the back there is a tiny bit of shaping with the little darts I added in. Nothing major, just a little tiny touch. Up closer, this neckline is everything. I love it. I think it's really flattering and really eye-catching. And you can see how flat this facing lies. Back and the fit of the shoulders, the sleeves. You know, I can move, I don't feel constricted. I think the sleeves fit me really well. So yeah, I'm super happy with this.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something new.
So I hope you like that little hack, just giving the pattern another option. I'm really happy with this. It's like a really nice top, and I can see myself making more. You know, it's really cool that I was able to get that facing out of a sleeve of a refashion. I always save chunks of things, especially when it's nice fabric like linen, thinking it's going to be good for something, and it was super good for this. So I didn't stop there, and I just went ahead and made myself another dress, exactly the same as this one, nothing different. I made the same size, only for this one I also added the exposed facing. And the fabric has the colors that I like. This is a crepe, but heavier weight than the top I've just shown you. I would say this is a medium weight crepe. It drapes nicely. I think it's appropriate, although it's not listed as the recommended fabrics. And look at the colors here. It's sort of red, but it's got lighter shades with these little black things. I don't know if this is some type of snake print, or just, I don't know what it is, but I like it. And I did make this one sleeveless because I just had minimal fabric for this one, so that was all I could do with this one. The facing is exactly the same as this facing, and I actually worked on them together at the same time. I batch cut them, fused them, did everything, all the preparation I did prior to sewing it on that I've shown you in the video. I did it twice. So I had this other little facing ready to be put on the neckline when I was ready to do this dress. So when it came time to making this one, it was just way easier because the facing was already, you know, folded and basted and everything was all done. All I had to do was put it on and the process went by faster. I've got bias binding on the arm side, and there is the bodice where it finishes. It's got little dots below the bust and on the side as usual, and the A-line skirt that hits me above the knee, a little bit short. Should have lengthened it maybe an inch, maybe, but it's okay. At the back, the seam that unites these forms a casing that you thread an elastic through and catch there on the sides, and the side seams inside are also pressed open. So just give you a closer look there, how it looks together, the crepe with the linen. I think it makes a nice match. And the black is always going to go good with a print that has black. It'll just make it pop. So I'm going to show you how that one looks. This is how the dress looks on. I think I needed maybe an inch of length, but that's okay. The skirt is A-lined, nice and flowy. You can see where the bodice stops there. Not right under the bust, just a little below that, but above the waist. The elastic makes it really, really comfortable. And up at the top you can see the feet of the bodice there. Fits the bust really well. The dots are correctly placed for me. You know, I did have to drop them as usual. The arm side covers nicely. I think the exposed facing just brings out the prettiness of the neckline, and the shape makes it pop a bit more. So yeah, that's my dress. Thing I forgot to mention about this pattern, and I usually forget, is that it has inseam pockets available. Like on the skirt piece you'll find pockets that you can do. I don't do them, but you should know that they're there if you are the type of person that likes them. I'm really happy to have shared this with you. I had been planning this hack to make it a top for ages in my head, for ages, and I'm really happy it's a reality. Give exposed facings a go. It's not a common feature that you see a lot in patterns, but it really is a striking feature, and if you take the right care and take your time to make it look pretty, I think it's a really nice statement to put on your clothes that are just going to make the neckline pop, especially if the neckline has this type of shape. If you like this pattern, the style, the dress, and you want to give it a go, maybe even make a top while you're at it, you know, you can get this pattern through my affiliate link down below. The pattern is only $5 for today, Friday, and then tomorrow it goes back to the normal price. At no cost to you. If you purchase through that link, I make a small commission from that sale that helps me in what I do in this channel. I hope to see you soon, and happy sewing. Bye.